Onassis Foundation.
Dublab.
Welcome to the Quarantine Tapes, a daily podcast from Onassis LA and Dublab. Hosted by Paul Holdengraber, this series chronicles shifting paradigms in the era of social distancing.
Hello.
Hello, could I please speak with David Harrington?
This is David.
Hello, David. This is Paul Holdengraber calling you from the Quarantine Tapes. Thank you so much for taking the time for being part of this series.
My pleasure.
Well, mine too. Tell me, how are you? Where do I find you? How have you been living this quarantine time?
Well, it's been very strange to all of a sudden lose my instrument. I've never really thought of myself as a violinist. I deal with the violin in order to play in Kronos. And so for me,
I love that. So in a way, you didn't only lose your instrument, but you lost the conviviality that the instrument has afforded you.
Yeah, and I remember thinking early on that my instrument just doesn't get to see her friends, you know. And this afternoon I was doing a little editing and of some voiceovers of some of our music. It's coming up on 30 years since our Black Angels recording was released.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I just couldn't believe how wonderful it was to hear the other members of the group on that recording. I hadn't listened to it for a long time. And, we just simply can't do that right now. I mean, we've been trying to do some rehearsals and we've done a few little recordings using our iPhones, and we're separate and we can't hear each other and we can't see each other and all that. We're trying to deal with a world that we're not prepared for. Nobody's prepared for this, I'm sure. But I think the most important thing is we're trying to keep the flame of our music really burning bright inside of us. And I'm getting a lot of help from a lot of people around the world. And as a matter of fact, I just wrote to my friend Terry Riley, whose birthday is tomorrow. He's one of those that I get to talk to as often as possible, and I love it.
So have you spoken to him about this moment? I imagine you have.
Well, I have, yes. And he had one of the single greatest quotes that I know of about our current president.
Tell me.
And I'm going to give it to you, okay? I haven't given this to anybody else, so this is yours, Paul. It's just for you. He said he thinks Trump is the pimple on the ass of the universe. And I repeated that to him because he had said this a couple months ago, and I repeated it to him the other day, and he said, "Did I say that?" And I said, "Yeah, Terry, that's an exact quote." And he said, "That's pretty good."
Well, I mean, the line that I so much love in regards to him is when Bernstein came to hear you play.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was fantastic. When he said, keep going, you wanted to stop because you was, I think, probably so, I don't know if intimidated, but impressed to have Bernstein there as one would be. And he said to you, keep going. That's great. It sounds like Egyptian whore music.
Whorehouse
music, and
yes.
and I love the line that follows. I called up Terry afterwards and said, "You just got a review from Leonard Bernstein," and Terry said, "Can I use that quote on my flyer?" It's fantastic. So I'm wondering.
You would have had to be there to get the whole flavor, because Bernstein was actually dancing on the way into our rehearsal, and that was pretty cool, I have to say.
I imagine. But tell me, David, at this moment, with this impossible social distancing for musicians, I've been speaking to a few, but I'm also thinking, how do actors work? I mean, how does anybody who has a tactile relationship to their profession and to others work? I mean, how would a jazz band work? I mean, it seems impossible. But has this moment in some way made you think differently about your practice?
Well, yes. I mean, I one of the things I'm doing is listening in a new way.
Oh, that's so interesting. Tell me what that new, because listening for you must be at the core of your being, but that it is in a new way. I'd love you to unpack that.
Well, yes. I mean, for me, listening is what leads me to all of the adventures that Kronos has had for the last 46.8 years. And, I trust my ears. I trust them. And so one of the things I've been doing is going to one of my very, very favorite musicians. And I'm listening to her every day. In fact, her name, just so you know, her name is Dr. N. Rajam, Rajam. And she's a violinist from India. And she studied with singers. And so she plays the violin in this unbelievably vocal, fluid way. And I'm finding that in this time, this angular, anxious, fierce time, to hear this woman who's now in her 80s, I believe, the way she plays the instrument is just so miraculously beautiful.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear her.
Yeah, you have to.
I must. I mean, after
go on to YouTube.
After feeling your passion for it, I'm thinking, can we stop this recording? Can I go and listen to her? But please continue.
Well, for me, the way music works is in very small little granules of time. And it might be a chord change. It might be a timbre. It might be a rhythm. But there's something that strikes an element of what I call the truth. I'm not sure I can define it, but I can feel it. And in music, it happens in certain moments. And getting back to Terry, one of the things that I am sending to him is one of my favorite moments in all of the music he's written for us. And it's this friction between harmonic notes in the quartet. And it is so vibrant that you almost feel the instrument quivering with life. And so for me, that moment is something that feels so truthful and so honest and beautiful. And you might hear it in Schubert, and you might hear it in, when I first heard it, it was the opening chord to Beethoven's Opus 127, the first of his late quartets. And I was 12 years old, and when I heard that, I didn't have any choice. I had to learn how to play that chord. And
I love that so much, and I love it so much, and it brought to mind a quotation. I'm a quotomaniac by profession. It brought to mind a quotation of Graham Greene where he says, "There is always one moment in childhood when the door opens and lets the future in." And it's wow. Isn't that fantastic? And it reading about that moment of Opus 127 in your life made me think that was a resonant moment, and it feels like, speaking with you just for the first 10 minutes that we've had together, that moment has happened again and again and again in different ways. Is that so?
Well, yes, it is, and that's why I trust my listening, because you gain these moments, or doorways, as Graham Greene said, these doorways, and anything else won't do. You know what I mean? It's like you can hit your head against the wall, and you're looking for that door, and there it is.
Except no substitutes.
No substitute. And a few years later, I was walking by the globe in our home, the globe of the world, and all of a sudden, I just had this realization that all of the string quartet music I knew was written by 4 guys who all lived in or near Vienna, Austria. And so for me, there was this moment where I thought, well, there's a lot of other cities in the world. There's a lot of other people. There's a lot of other religions and languages. So
no kidding, no kidding, and your curiosity for music from elsewhere seems to me to inform your both your appetite and your programming. You said once that when America threatens to go to war with a country, your instinct is immediately to learn about their culture and about their music.
Yeah, so the job has gotten it's become a 24-hour-a-day job these days.
Yeah, you've been traveling a lot, as it were, even if you're not.
Right. And so that's the thing about, music and musicians. I mean, there really is the idea of you can't take time off, really. I mean, even in this quarantine, it's not time off. You can step back and reflect. You can find new ways of listening. You can check out things you didn't have time to hear before. You can do all kinds of things. But music is something that you have to consult the resonance inside, and those moments, those doorways inside. I was just hearing another one. Was a recording made in 1916 by a young singer who emigrated from Armenia to the United States. And her name was Zabela Panosian. And I invite you to listen to this song called Grung, G-R-O-U-N-G, Grung. And you can hear it on YouTube. And there are 2 moments in the song, and she hits this miraculous note twice in the song. And the note has become, Zabela's note has become this guiding moment in my own violin playing.
Wow, it's so like, beautiful. It's so beautiful what you say.
Well, I mean, what she did, she made a note. I have no idea how a human being could make a note like that. First of all, I don't get it. It's a mystery, and one I love to think about and contemplate. But in 1916, so during World War I, in New York City, she sang into a microphone and made this sound that has traveled down time, and it can reach us, and it is so human, and there's so much in that sound. I could write a novel about that note.
Will you please?
I might.
This is the moment, David.
Yeah, now's the time, right?
Well, I do think that it would be beautiful. I encourage you to perhaps write an essay, at least, about that singular moment. It's a moment which, the way you're describing it, is mystical and kind of an epiphany. And as you speaking about this, I think of my own musical listening, and there was a moment, I'll say it very briefly, when I was growing up, insofar that I did, in Europe. I was growing up in Belgium. You would be able to go to something called the La Discothèque Nationale, and you would be able to rent 10 records a week, and every 6 months you had to come back and they had to inspect your stylus under a microscope. I mean, completely different times, obviously. And I would take these various records, and in that moment, the ones I remember were 10 different versions, which drove my sister and parents crazy of the magic flute. And there was one recording of The Queen of the Night, sung by Wilma Lipp, in the Carl Böhm recording of the 1950s. And I always felt that that was the grand moment I was waiting for, and have been waiting for, listening to so many other versions and maybe even to music. And I know that there's been such a moment for you. You tell this story of playing Strange Fruit once in a practice room and managing to make your violin sound like Billie Holiday. It was a magical moment in my life's work. And you say something which is beautiful. You say, I have to live with the traces of that amazing, elusive practice session. It only, as you're describing it there, it only happened that one time.
That's right. And every time we've played that piece, every time I've practiced it, tried to play it, I try to refer to that session.
Take me back to that moment. Session. Take me back to that moment. And what happened at that moment, and what hasn't happened after that moment.
We were in Austin, Texas. Our premiere of Strange Fruit was going to be the next night. I went into a room and turned off all the lights. Essentially, I could not even see my instrument or my bow. And I just channeled everything I had ever heard of Billie Holiday's voice and everything I knew about the situation in our country that we are in the middle of right now and have been for 401 years, really. And suddenly, and it really was quite suddenly, my bow no longer was a bow. And my arm was no longer an arm, and the violin. It was an incredible experience. I don't drink and I don't do drugs, and I'm not into stuff like this. But it happened. That's all I can tell you. And what I was hearing was what I needed to hear, and I wanted to hear. I wanted my instrument to not be a violin. I wanted it to be her voice. And a lot of the work that Kronos has done has come from experiences like that, where we hear something and we try to make our instruments. It could be an animal, it could be a voice, it could be so many different things in nature and in the world. The instrument becomes a tool. It becomes I love that idea of a doorway.
Isn't it beautiful? It is beautiful because in a way, and you've spoken recently, just before the pandemic. You gave an interview in the Strad in January, and you spoke about your work with someone I've spoken to myself a couple of times, Rebecca Solnit. And you speak about the fact that you're actually quite optimistic for the future. I mean, this was in January, and I'm wondering if, using the idea of the doorway and perhaps using the idea, as Arundhati Roy speaks of this moment of the pandemic being a portal. Do you feel that? Do you feel that it could be, or it might be? Are you hopeful?
Well, yes, I am. I mean, and getting back to Terry Riley, as he said to me the other day, things will not be the same. We will find new ways to do music, and that doesn't mean that we don't value what we used to do, but we need to find new ways, and it's up to us to unlock our imaginations. And personally, I was incredibly inspired by TikTok the other day. And I was so proud. My granddaughter taught me about TikTok.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And in the last few days, I've learned how to crack an egg in the most elegant way. And I learned it off TikTok. And the fact that these kids could gum up Trump's works, I thought that was genius. I thought it was amazing. And I'm getting a lot of really powerfully beautiful energy from young people right now, and demanding that things be different. My daughter is a teacher in a third grade classroom, and she teaches at Francis Scott Key Elementary School. And just this morning, she sent me the letter the principal wrote. I don't know if you know this, but there was a huge statue of Francis Scott Key in Golden Gate Park, and it got taken down by protesters the other day. And the principal of my daughter's school wants to have the name changed of the school. And Bonnie, my daughter, has been wanting that for years, because she pointed out to me, this is something I did not know, but in the third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner, Francis Scott Key talks about slaves. And this is something somebody that spends all their time trying to learn stuff like this. I didn't know this before.
Isn't this so interesting also, because it comes back to something we touched upon, David, just at the beginning, which is perhaps this moment will heighten our attention and our ability to carefully listen.
I think so. I really do think that will happen. And I think it is happening. And it's as though we have more time right now to actually listen, and maybe more energy for it. Maybe it might be that this confinement in a certain way is a blessing for our society, and maybe for the environment, because I don't know about you and where you live, but I'm hearing birds that I've never heard before.
Of course. I spoke with Bernie Krause not so long ago, and yes, the possibility of what nature could be if we were not on a rampage the way we are. For sure. And this moment has also, it seems, offered you not only a possibility of listening and a possibility of communicating and a possibility of learning TikTok. I love that. I don't know if have you been watching Sarah Cooper by any chance?
Oh, I'm a big Sarah Cooper fan.
Likewise.
My wife and I, when we discovered Sarah Cooper about a month ago or so, we had not laughed that hard. We laughed until we were on the floor crying. It gave us so much pleasure and happiness.
And it's so simple, isn't it? Because it's quotation at its most rudimentary level. I was talking about this with Patton Oswalt. It's nothing more than the repetition, but the repetition makes you again listen and hear it in a different way.
And the fact that Sarah Cooper is a woman, she's African American, it just says so much to me.
Yes, this moment also has afforded you the possibility of discovering and rediscovering. And I was reading about what you're reading now and your discovery, for instance, of Rachel Carson.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Tell me, because I know, in a way, it's not a surprise to me that Rachel Carson would mean something to you, given what we were mentioning a bit earlier with Rebecca Solnit and your desire to create bulletproof music. I'm curious how all these pieces fit together or don't.
The thing, I wish I could tell you the name of the book. That it's a book of her lesser-known writings. And there's even, within that book, she wrote program notes for La Mer of Debussy. Yeah. And they're incredibly beautiful program notes, by the way. But the thing is about the book is the introduction explains Rachel Carson's method of writing. It's so much like what musicians have to do. It's so much like what I do, for example. I felt like she was a relative, and I felt so close to her. And the process is it's very simple, but it's really detailed. And that is, she would write something, and then she would rewrite, and then she would read it herself, and then she would have it read to her, and then she would go back and read it again. And so there were always these layers. And what I found is not only do you sense that this woman is telling you the truth, absolute truth. There's no veneer. You're getting the story as she knew it. But the process that she discovered to arrive at the words and the rhythm and the just the shape of her writing is so beautiful, I think. And
I love what you're saying. In closing, David, sadly, I came upon this sentence, which I love, partly because I seem to have ongoing conversations that never end in my mind and also in reality. You said, I would never want to collaborate with anyone if I couldn't imagine it as an ongoing conversation throughout our lives, which in a sense, the way you were talking about Rachel Carson is another person with whom you are having an ongoing conversation. I'd like you to say something about this.
Yes, that's true. Wow. I guess I'm a little like Terry. Did I say that?
I'm afraid you did, or maybe Terry did, or maybe I did, or who knows? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
What matters is that this conversation is ongoing.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I've gone back to my 3 volumes of the letters of Vincent van Gogh, for example. And for me, there's a lot of people out there that call themselves artists. And I feel like that's a word that's overused. Vincent van Gogh defines what we should be searching for, I think. I mean, when you think about the sunflowers, and I just realized the other day that he painted those as a gift for Gauguin. And the idea of making things to present to other people. And I was recently finishing up an album that's going to be released, celebrating Pete Seeger, by the way. And we were trying to get it out during his 100th year, but it took too long to get it right. So it's coming out later. But what we wanted was something that's good enough for the next generation. And I realized basically everything that I really want to do in music is for young people. It's for kids. It's because, when I was 12, I heard the Beethoven.
Right.
When I was 23, I heard Black Angels, and it changed my life. It's like we have to be doing things that are good enough for the youngest people, and they deserve the best that we can come up with, I think.
David, what a distinct pleasure it's been speaking with you, and I hope we meet in person sometime.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. And stay safe, stay well, and until we meet next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Paul. Okay.
Bye.
To support this show and Dublab's progressive programming, go to dublab.com/support.